Welcome to This Week in X, presented by Crushing Comics for Hellions, number 13. We're going to start with our favorite moments from this issue and then get into a much deeper discussion, beginning with Tyler.
Explaining what happened between the Sinisters.
Fariha.
Nanny got really weird with Orphan Maker over there. And Peter.
What exactly is Mastermind incubating back at Arcade's headquarters? All right, y'all. We have three very interesting things to discuss and a lot more. Get ready for our full discussion of Hellions number 13. All right, we are here to talk in full about Hellions number 13 out on the 7th of July, 2021. And that comes with our typical spoiler warning. We're going to talk about this book's history, the Hellfire Gala, other X-Men books, all sorts of things, because we want to have a full discussion with you. And doing that with me today are Tyler and Fariha, and we're going to go around and share our initial reactions, and then we're going to get much, much deeper. So for Hellions number 13, beginning with Tyler, let's hear your initial personal view on this issue, and then we will dig deeply into the plot.
I like how this is an issue that brought a number of threads together, or reminded us of those threads. So that is, always a plus for me. Antonio is someone I do not recognize immediately, but I did enjoy the art quite a bit. The surprise facial expressions probably needed a little bit of variety between characters, but it's more of a nitpick because as Fariha and Peter mentioned during Planet Size X-Men, it is the same with Laris, and so so this is really just a nitpick. I'll give this a 3.5 icky implications from Author Maker out of 5.
Yeah,
just doesn't know how to speak. No, I really enjoyed it because, as Tyler pointed out, it actually is bringing back all the hanging plot threads. This feels like if I'm reading this arc to arc, it will feel like, okay, this is doing its job. It's whatever it's started, it's ending or continuing or moving it forward. And I think it makes more sense because these characters are kind of like here. They're not connected to anything. They're not even invited to the gala, for God's sake. They're just on the side. I always enjoy the interaction between all the characters, and Sinister is as much as I kind of I don't, but I can't not like him. He's just so difficult to just purely hate because you just want to slap him. And then, and we're here, there's a lot of cool Sinister moment as well. I feel like the villains are regressing back to oh my God, mutant, which I didn't care for that much. So that was one of my things. But and the thing is, someone mentioned that we should introduce Nanny to the thing in the Way of X number 3 or whatever. After seeing this, I'm like, let's not. Let's keep Nanny away from all kids. No. But yeah, so I think it's going somewhere. I'm super excited for this. I would give it 4 out of 5. 4 weird Nanny vibes out of 5.
For me, I have been feeling that this book has lacked bite. I think that I've made no hidden agenda about the fact that I just did not really feel that Arcade arc. I was worried that this was just becoming a joke book. I think I was pretty tough in the Hellfire Gala issue too. And this felt like an issue with teeth. It really felt like it was here to not just make jokes. It was here to move the character interactions forward. It was here to make sure that we knew that these characters have made their own bed, or at least Sinister has for them, and they are continuing to lie deeper and deeper in it. And that's why I'm reading this title. So for me, it kind of felt like a return to form. It made me think maybe that Arcade arc kind of wound up being as long as it was because it kind of had to fit where it fit in order to hit Hellfire Gala. And maybe this book never really had a great thing to do at the Hellfire Gala and would have preferred to just move on to this issue. Which doesn't necessarily mean I, in retrospect, go back and think any more highly of those issues. I just didn't really like them. But I really did like this one for the reason that I liked the first, 7-ish issues of this book as well. And I have to tag off of Tyler's comment. This was not only an artist change, this was also a color artist change. Roge Antonio and Rain Barreto were not the team on the previous issues. And first I was sure it was still Segovia. Then when I checked and saw it was Roge Antonio, I still thought I think it was Curiel who was coloring Segovia previously. And I went back several issues And it was not Rain Burrito, another colorist who I really, really like, and I think tends to be really undervalued. So huge credit to this art team. It is hard to maintain tonal consistency when you have the change of both the line artist and the color artist. And I think they nailed it here. I mean, to the point that I checked the credits repeatedly to see if the art team changed. I think it nailed that same vibe. It keeps that kind of same shadows, heavy blacks, characters standing off of it, the same sort of facial acting. And that's what we need on the series. So great job, artists, and great job, editors, something you don't always hear us say on this program, for introducing that consistency. Now we get to the issue itself, and I think we have to start with the first scene because it is portentous for our mutants. There is a team doing a little bit of after investigation on the AI baby that was abducted after the arc that preceded the arcade arc from these, I guess they're kind of like evolved AIs that were previously used by the right, and they're mutant hating, right? Am I getting this all
right?
Yeah. And so they produced a neonate, and they have a special cleanup team for these sorts of things, which has some interesting implications because A, we get into the whole nanny weirdness, which we'll get into, but B, isn't this really make more mutants in action? Like, and in that way, isn't Nanny obeying the laws of Krakoa? These AIs kind of mutated so that they could replicate and create something unique. Nanny obeying the laws of Krakoa was like, oh, they made a new mutant, I better take care of it. And everybody lived happily ever after. Doesn't this just mean everything is great, Tyler? Isn't everything just wonderful?
Well, not so much. I mean, the reason why the Smiley robots were destroyed was because of a virus that was introduced by Krakoa.
Even though the friendly robots were friendly, like they were like, oh hey, maybe we do want to hang out with mutants. Krakoa killed them anyway.
They were taught wrongly. They were like, oh, mutant scums, and then Havoc was like, oh no, mutant
That's
scum
kind
is
of
not
a bad thing.
You should say, oh, friends, yes, friends, and then the virus came in and
you're making me remember how much I love this book.
Right. Yeah.
So that was. And here what they have discovered is that, you know, the AI have self-evolved, and they have a baby somewhere, and unfortunately the Krakoan virus did not take care of the backup. So we have a potential problem here. So. I mean, the other thing is, why do we have another bad guy with goggles? We have a lot of bad guys with goggles. Devil has goggles, and then this one has goggles. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be so confused if like some artist is not like drawing them distinctively, and then you'll be like, oh wait, and then you have like. And then maybe sometime, you know, more men appear with goggles too. And then you're like, oh, wait, who?
Who is who? My problem was not necessarily, the goggle thing. I'm like, I cannot, if you ask me to distinguish any of the Arcus bad guys, I would never be able to do that because they all look the same. Maybe all the races look the same. Maybe that's the point, right? But the thing is, like, here's another scientist who is upset about mutants. I just so as a STEM person, I just don't understand at what point evolution is something you as a science person don't like. Science is all about evolution. Like, over here is like, if that wasn't a dirty word. Really? What kind of scientist are you? Like, I mean, science is all about evolving humans, evolving a system that is not necessarily where it needs to be, evolving it to somewhere. You should be reveling in mutants. Like, you should be all about, okay, let's be friends with them. So I don't understand, what are these scientists? Who are they? Are they really scientists? And what is it? And I wasn't also very sure whether this guy was an AI or not, because he talks about, like, it's like, one of the things, like, or as Dr. Meyer would say, something happened. Like, there's like that. But then later on, it's like, my God, the AI program somehow produced a mutant. So I'm like, okay, so he is a human. So he's trying to be Dr. Nemesis, but he's failing at that. I don't know. It's just like this bad guy. It seems like we're regressing back to the age-old, oh, yeah, mutants. We don't like them. That. But yeah, like, and then Nanny, I don't know. Everything
Yeah,
about
let's see.
Nanny
Yeah, I
was
mean, let's
just-
hear it for you. Nanny,
Yeah,
she's
Nanny.
just obeying the mutant laws. She's trying to be a good citizen of Krakoa and
Helmet
foster
Bros-
this mutant baby.
Helmet Bros will not agree to that. Like Helmet Bros only want specific kind of mutants, like, that can help them and be their soldiers. But yeah, like it's like mew mew, and it's like, no, you have to call me Nanny, not to bomb me. I'm like, oh, like, oh, stop it. Like, it just like, and then
No, I have a question for Nanny. What happens
ask
to
me.
bad boys?
Oh my god. I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Because that was the threat to Offer Maker. You know what
Yeah.
happens to bad boys? And I'm like,
Yeah, what?
what?
What do you do? So, and I actually wanted to ask you guys, other than Orphan Maker, is there other children Nanny ever raised?
Well, she tries, but the X-Men usually liberate them.
Oh,
X Factor.
liberate.
Or X Factor. Yeah, I'm right. I just yesterday read the issue where Nanny invades the Australian outback and babyfies Psylocke, Havoc, Dazzler, and a little bit Colossus, but then he breaks free, but then they think Storm is dead. It's the beginning of that whole mess.
Is the whole mess,
Yeah.
So, okay, because, and also, here's also another thing to kind of give, like, because you know how Offer Maker says, oh, call me Peter now. I'm not Pete anymore, or I'm not Pete. And she actually respects that. Like, that's something I picked up. He's like, Peter, put him down. And I'm like, ooh, these are not good.
No,
like,
it could also be like, how when the mom or they use your full name when they're angry.
Oh,
it's like, Fariha, or Fria.
It's Priya. It's like, it's like, or my mom's called me your father's daughter, which is common.
No, but the other thing also is that it's like Offer Maker is like, oh, I'm not supposed to go to her special room because I'm too old to watch her change. And I'm like,
no, but that's a thing. That's a parenting thing. Like parents, a lot of parents really feel like when kids are of a certain age, and I mean, this has a whole other conversation attached to it about the sexualization of the human body and when we start thinking of people as sexual creatures. But there is a lot of parenting style that kind of looks at it like, oh, up to a certain age, you can see mommy and daddy naked because it doesn't matter. But then when you realize that that humans are sexual beings and gender is different, and all that, or mommy and daddy or whatever, then you can't. That's a thing. I mean, I'm not passing any judgment, positive or negative.
Okay.
I'm just telling you that is not just made up for this comic book. Some parents parent that way.
No, but the thing is, in this particular case, though, this happened after she came back being honed. That's when, because before that, so that's an Orphan Maker has no reference point for that, right? So he's probably like super, and he died outside of MF though, right?
No,
he was
not. He's honed too.
He was honed too.
Because his goo is super dangerous now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that is him getting older, right? Like Nanny has pretty much had him in a state. All of these other characters we had that were 5 or 6 year olds, like gained 5 or 6 years since Inferno era, right? Like Artie, Leech, WizKid, they're all, I mean, WizKid maybe only gained like 3 or 4 years, but still the point is they're older. But Orphan Maker is kind of still being played in the suspended state of childhood. And so the whole idea of him getting older kind of has to do with the fact that he's honed and he came back and he's been regenerated, which really raises some questions about something that this made me think is, what is Nanny's like end goal with these kids? She kind of wants to keep them as kids. We've even seen her take somebody like in that X-Men issue I was referring to, I think 248, I want to say, and like regressing grown people to kids so she can mother them. But it kind of does beg the question of what is the end goal? Is it just to have an orphanage of all these kids? Do the kids ever get to graduate? What does Nanny want to see them do when they grow up? What happens when they are too old for this? And I don't think that.
But that's the thing, though. It's like never ending. Like,
right, because there's absolutely a Peter Pan Neverland aspect to it where she's like, nobody should ever grow up. I'm going to be this parent that has them under my thumb eternally. And my influence on them will be never ending, and they will always be children, and I will always be their nanny.
So Tyler can totally connect to that. It's a very Asian mom thing. Like, when I say Asian mom, I mean the whole Asia, not the type, like Asia that Hollywood said this is only Asia. No, I'm not talking about the whole thing, all of it. Like
The Italian moms surprisingly can have a similar attitude.
Yeah.
Or that too. So yeah, it's just I'm just so impressed by how she puts lipstick on her. It's so well done all the time. Like it's just
she has
so
a stencil.
perfect.
It might just be a
Probably
magnet. You don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a magnet. It's like a stencil, but it's like, oh, okay, but yeah, I mean, everything to do with Nanny and Orphan Maker was like.
It was so good. I can't believe how excited I am for Nanny scenes, especially now that I'm reading the 1988, 1989, 1990 Nanny material and being like, yep, I still hate this. Even knowing what I know now and how much I like Nanny now, I still hate this as much as I ever hated it. It really speaks to how good Zeb Wells is, that in 13 issues of your Nanny is like our must-read character.
I mean, he didn't abandon the other characters too. So here we see the team gelling and also breaking apart, which I thought was kind of brilliant. Because you see like Grey Crow gelling with Empath and Wildchild, and then sort of gelling with Offer Maker, and then the breakup with like, I mean, not break, but like sort of fighting,
regressing.
With John and Conan and Quanon and Nanny and Offer Maker, So I thought this was really well done.
And this is also a way to kind of write characters that are not good. Like, I mean, not good as person, it kind of does, like, I think Wells does it very well. It's like, there is moments where they come as heroes, shows some heroism, but then it's like, no, of course, no, that wasn't me, so, and I think it's because that's how this character should be, something one of the MCU show currently running should learn and is not doing it.
Fariha wants to bring you spoilers so hard, y'all. So you gotta hold her back with all of our I love this Grey Crow Orphan Maker moment. Sometimes you'll hear me be like 2 pages, really, but it just was good, even if it could have been done in a page. Because, you have Orphan Maker who's all of this time saying, I want to be a big boy, I don't want to be under Nanny's thumb. He's more honed now. But part of being honed maybe is that he doesn't know who to be without being related to his mother or his nanny. So he's crying. Grey Crow's bereft because he thought that Conan, the one person he really was starting to connect with, has kind of spurned him. And then they decide to clean him and disassemble and reassemble his guns, which is such a strange bonding moment. And we get, wow, Mr. Crow, how'd you get so fast? And then we get into them talking about dads and Orphan Maker. I never met my dad. Nanny says it's a good thing, but I don't know. I mean, it was just a great scene. Like, what a great way to use these 2 characters.
And then Alex comes in with murder things. Like,
including your murder things.
And then the whole awkward is, okay, is someone going to save Alex from this? Like, this character has been trashed to the point where it's like he's like, he doesn't exist. It's like the shred, like it's like a skeleton that's just there. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with this at all. I mean, I love this, but I'm also not comfortable at all.
Speaking of things that are deeply uncomfortable, now let's get to what is obviously the main event of this issue, which is Sinister versus Sinister, which was teased in the cliffhanger of the Hellfire Gala. They're both sinister. Multiple entendres, because they are both Mr. Sinister, and they both have very sinister purposes. So to be clear, we're going to refer to them as Amenth Sinister, who is the Sinister that was presumed dead and torn up by Tarn on Amenth, although now he serves Tarn. And also Krakoa Sinister, who is the Sinister who decided he did not want to go into the mission, and then kills the remainder of the team when they come through the gate, and has been sinistering since then, which makes him the one who has been engineering this arcade thing and making the deal with Mastermind. But here's what happens when you have clones. This is messy. They both think that they're the main Sinister. They both want to be the one in charge. And Krakoa Sinister is interrupted in the middle of what I thought was a highly intriguing conversation with Mastermind. The payload is incubating and will be mature in a few hours. Krakoa Sinister, do your loins ache?
I tried to. So because you said, like, I'm forgetting his name, the actor that you pointed out, that you read Sinister in his voice.
It's Tim Curry from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
So I have actually. Yeah, I have actually seen that, and since then I cannot not hear that voice when I read it, and then I heard it in that voice, and I'm like, my ears.
Or Legend, if you prefer, starring a young Tom Cruise with Tim Curry as the devil. That's another good one.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
And of course, my favorite movie of all time, Clue, with Tim Curry as well.
Okay, but the thing is, like,
I'm trying to think, how would Tim Curry say, "Do your loins ache?"
And it was very recently I found out that he has a British accent, which makes everything that he says is so weird. And then, such wild, and as well. But
well, can you imagine Sinister with a British accent talking to Jamie with a British accent?
Who's
Haggering, haggering over the cape.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, that's what made it so funny to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. But he's
British people.
Yeah, he's they're all insane. But the thing is, here's my question though. So, which Sinister is the one we've been following from Hellions, Hawks from the Hawksbox era? Because I am so confused by the game they had, the bets they had, who won, who lost, who went where.
So my take is the clone won, but the original, the Hawkspox, the one Sinister, changed the rules at the last minute. It's like, the winner gets the right to go to other world.
So in that case, explain to me from this point of view, the Frankenstein or the Nth one.
He's the newer one.
That's the original.
That's the
He's
clone.
the newer one.
He's the clone.
Oh, that's the clone.
He's a clone.
Okay, so the Sinister did not change from Hawks.
No.
Well, it doesn't matter. They're clones of each other.
Yeah.
Right.
But the memories is slightly different. Because the
from
Sinister,
that point, they're slightly different.
Yeah,
but from before, it doesn't matter.
From before, it's always the same.
Yeah.
Oh, a variant? You mean? Sorry.
Yeah. Whereas I've been watching way too much Rick and Morty lately, ever since that Namor episode the other week. And so I'm like, I have some good comparisons with Rick and Morty, but we'll save that for completely different.
So I raised my hand when Peter was like, what is Sinister cooking? Because
what is he cooking, Tyler?
I know. Yeah, what is he cooking? Tell us.
Well,
Destiny?
if you actually zoom into the screen when he's speaking to Mastermind, you see that he is actually cloning the Locust Vial.
Oh, because he got right, which this does kind of tell us, because the whole point of the other Sinister dying was to bring back the Amenth mutants. So, that makes this showdown even more interesting, because you have Amenth Sinister with the actual Tarn team that have come through, because they can come through gates, they're mutants, and then you have Sinister making his own versions of that. Oh boy,
which will mature within hours here. So Mastermind already told them, told him, say, they are ready.
Are you listening, Spider-Man? This is what you call a clone saga.
But the other point to that is, are these and then are they eligible to go to Mars?
I was thinking, because from their perspective, they're like, who gives a shit about this Mars stuff? They were never there. If I'm remembering correctly, Tyler, Amanthian mutants have already split long ago from Arakko, so they don't think of themselves as Arakkans, right?
No, they have never been. If I remember correctly, I need to go back to my notes. Is that they have never been defined as they were defined as they were sort of what they call crossbreed with the Arakko mutants with the Amanthians. So I was really confused initially, because remember that in the Hellions issue, these Locust Vial, they were going to Arakko to collect mutant genes too, and that's how the path crossed. But apparently, Tarn the Uncaring is on the ring of Arakko. So he has a seat there. So he basically got transported back when Arakko was transported in the prison exchange with Apocalypse. So that part was a little bit confusing for me, and but I just take it at face value that because of Genesis, the Amanthian mutants are considered Arakans, and that's why Arakis, and that's why they were on Araco when they did the prisoner exchange, and that's how Sinister came back. Even and on that point, I just want to point out, like, one nitpick is that there is no otherworld gate on Krakoan soil. The otherworld gate is in the lighthouse beside the Krakoan, besides the gate that goes from the lighthouse to Krakoa. That was shown explicitly in Excalibur. So there's a little bit of a mistake in some of the dialogue here. Not dialogue, in the data page, where Prodigy was like, the otherworld gate, like when he was describing how how everything how the surveillance surveillance got blacked out when Sinister killed, murdered.
But at the time,
at the time there was,
they came through the gate onto Krakoa. That was during X of Swords.
Yeah, but that's not the otherworld gate. That is the lighthouse gate, because
they died on Krakoa back in X of Swords.
Yes. So the assumption was, well, at least the assumption for me was that they came through to the lighthouse and immediately stepped through to Krakoa, and that was where they were murdered.
No, but at that time there was multiple gates, and they took all of them out except for the other world.
Right, because there was the external gate too.
Yes, but they definitely did not use the external gate, because they were using the gate in the Avalon throne room, and that was the one that is in going to the lighthouse.
Oh, well, maybe it was actually a mistake during X of Swords. Really,
it could be. Yeah. because that part was clarified in Excalibur. Afterwards, like, I believe it's the wisdom issue where wisdom was that one.
Well, that's all good points, but the thing is, this data page also made me angry, because I'm like, why was this not the part of X Factor last issue? Like, because there's like the issue we talked about there, the Quanon talked about Prodigy. I'm like, this is the connection. Why aren't we seeing something like this?
Well, because it's part of the plot of this comic. Part of what's made X Factor so relevant is that they are showing up as the persistent force to investigate mutant deaths in other comics. I don't want all of those X Factor mentions to be crammed back into X Factor. It's part of what creates a shared world in these comic books, that X Factor has data pages in other people's issues. I want more of that. Let's see more cross-pollination of data pages. But I get your point, because we were reading in the gala and we were like, why is she asking about David?
Yeah, exactly my point. Like, it's like, okay, why was this? So this seems like a reason that maybe, but the thing is, like, this was never connected back.
But isn't it enough to get it in the next issue? Aren't we reading all of these comics?
Yeah, sure.
But what about that weird 1 month thing, which is
that's wrong, isn't it?
Yeah,
because it's been 2 weeks since the end of X of Swords. This is why I hate when people like get into specific time references in comics. You are always going to mess up every time. It's going to mess up every time. Just keep your dumb mouth shut.
There's only one way to fit this in properly, which is like this issue would have to be 2+ weeks after Gala.
Well, I was also thinking, though, could we read it that the very beginning of the arcade plot maybe happened slightly before? No, it couldn't have, because he kidnapped a Sinister.
It happens. Let's just assume it happens immediately after X of Swords.
Yeah.
So it benefited from that 2 weeks, and then this issue happens another 2 weeks after the Gala.
It doesn't.
So you have a month.
And that's why there is no reference of Magneto. The fact that nobody talks about it annoys me. It's like, it's like,
so it's 2 weeks after the trial is happening.
Yeah, trial happened or something.
So,
like, because I'm like, wow.
Well, I'll say the thing that I always say, which is I know Tyler plays by these rules too. You can't get too hung up on the timing of a book until the arc is over. I mean, last week we were starting to get hung up on Children of the Atom's in conflict with the Gala. No, it wasn't, because this week's Children of the Atom showed that it was all happening before the Gala. But when you give explicit time ranges, like saying it's now been a month that blah, and that conflicts with other things that we've seen, that's not one of these like wait for each plot to resolve that. I mean, and I don't think I'm just nitpicking. I actually like was, you know, the meme with the math and the lady who's confused and all the numbers fly by her head. I was actually doing that like, yeah. All right, folks, last call on anything you think is worth highlighting in this Sinister versus Sinister showdown.
I mean, one of the Sinisters riddle is basically coming true here, right? Because Quanon was the very first one to recognize what had happened.
What happened?
Like, they were murdered by this Sinister. Because they were walking in and everyone was confused because they didn't know what happens, and then immediately like Quanon is like Essex.
Well, and also now we get this great Spider-Man pointing fingers at each other meme between the two Sinisters, because the one Sinister is like, you got them all killed, and the other Sinister is like, you killed the rest of them. And so even from the team standpoint, like both of these Sinisters are culpable, because the one that's still around is the one that murdered them all, but the one who's come back from Otherworld is the one who got half of them murdered. So it's kind of like they're which side do you pick here if you're the Hellions?
I just kept laughing at the fact that he tried to put him in the incinerator. It's like, let's get you to the incinerator.
Let's get you there.
Let's get you there. Like, it's just like never ending. I can't like, I'm just fascinated by this.
Well, and even the Noodle Sinister is eyeing the cape in one of the panel. He's like, start picking up the cape. Then I was like, no, why?
But, you know, it just adds charm. But anyway.
Well, that is our discussion of Hellions issue number 13. If you're looking for our discussions of other X-Men comic books, we've covered every issue and every week from the beginning of X of Swords to present. So just look elsewhere on the channel. And Fariha, why do we get together each week to do this rather large task, this large ongoing task of consuming everything X-Men?
Because X-Men is better when it's right.
That's right. So we want to thank you for being together with us for this issue, this episode of This Week in X. And until we get to see you again here on the channel on This Week in X or anything else, we hope that you are well.
Bye.
Bye.